There are some wonderful themes just resonating, I think, within the panel. Can folks hear me in the back? Okay. I want to thank Pace and everyone and my amazing fellow panelists and Judy for mining my incredibly convoluted background into a succinct bio, because I actually work 3 jobs in 2 states in order to take care of an elderly mother here and run an NGO over in New York. And I've had the privilege along the way of doing a kind of make-your-own PhD. We were laughing about our non-traditional backgrounds over dinner, but I actually was able to study this interdisciplinary field called sustainable development with a cohort of mid-career professionals who were all doing research in our own home areas. It was a global program. So my fellow students included Muslim Arif al-Mubarak from Saudi Arabia, whose dissertation was about how do you detect endocrine disruptors in desert climates, and Carol LeBlanc, who is a chemist at the Pentagon, who is helping the Pentagon figure out how to go greener. And there was an environmental manager from an electronics company in Korea. And so my experience has been about kind of being able to gaze at all of the amount of damage we're able to do and the amount of incredible learning and transcendence that we humans are capable of. Way back in my career, I was in a building fire in a brownstone office building in Boston. We were on the 5th floor. 4 firefighters were killed, and half our workforce almost was. I was the person who first smelled something funny, and I said, remember my first grade fire drill instructions: remain calm, just get out, no panic. And so I said, everybody, this building's on fire. I'm going down 4 flights, I'm knocking on office doors, I'm saying, there's a fire, we need to go. And about half of the people got it and followed, and a lot of people took a while. And the people who were last and almost perished were a bunch of social science PhDs who were standing on the 5th floor of a burning building, calling 911 and being put on hold. This happened. This is a metaphor. I have used this teaching story for many years because this is a metaphor of what's going on, I believe, with climate change. They got it that there was a fire. They didn't get that it was directly relevant to them. And they didn't get that there was an action implication. Okay? Fortunately, the context heated up and led them to get their butts out of there just in time. And I have to say, the executive director of our organization herded the entire workforce down the street to the nearest bar. But we are in the same place where we get it and we can intellectualize about it and we can talk among our peer group about what an issue it is, but to actually loosen up and get out there and engage the wider population is the opportunity immediately ahead of us, right? And I mean immediately. A few years later, not surprisingly, I found myself hanging out with as many people as I could who had expertise on behavior change and psychology. I actually found my way into a place called the Center for Psychology and Social Change, a bunch of psychologists working around the fringes of Harvard Medical School on mutually assured destruction, the sort of madness of the arms race. And I learned many things, but 3 lessons I got there that I think are relevant to our human nature theme on climate change I'm going to walk through, and then I want to walk briefly through what I think it tells us, some psychologies that are in play now and where we need to go with working with human nature. So lesson 1, everybody's looking for a formula, a way of understanding human nature. The American Psychological Association has 48 separate divisions: family therapy, developmental psychology, educational psychology, group and systems theory. And, it would be really nice, it would be handy if there were just one way. One of my colleagues way back in Cambridge wrote a paper called Desperately Seeking the Singular, about how we're all looking for the one answer. But in fact, we are dealing with a really complex problem, and we need to rise to the complexity rather than trying to dumb it down to the simplest answer that we would like. Second thing I learned was from a Gestalt therapist named Sarah Kahn, who taught a course way back in the 80s called The Psychology of Global Awareness and Social Responsibility. And Gestalt psychologists are a particular kind. They look at how people put things together, how people recognize patterns, how people get it. And I think that's, that's what we need to understand. So Sarah had a framework that included some ingredients to help people get it. You need to be aware, awake. You need to create a quality of conversation where there is listening going on. You can hammer people with all the right information, but if we're not listening, we're not going to go there. People need, obviously, understanding, emotional response, and then finally, in her model, people need some understanding of what kind of action they can take. If you look at an issue and it's just all closed doors, it's all, preconceived gloom and doom, your awareness will really shut down. So when we can model a pathway forward and our capacity to take that path, people come along. It's much easier to have the conversation. And she added that, we don't just, this is not simple. We get that we are part of this larger tribe. When we link our experience sometimes to that of our family or our cultural history or, the last time we saw some direct sign of climate change and who we were with and how it affected them as well as us, it's a social kind of learning. It's not just an individual learning, okay? The third thing that I got from back there was working with the nuclear freeze movement, which was happening at the time. A lot of very good work was done in helping audiences become receptive, meet each other, have a chance to talk about their responses to the issue. And Daniel Yankelovich, the pollster back then, was observed that he had never seen a social movement come to life like such wildfire, the way that movement did, because folks had humanized it. I am going to just take the liberty of probably 2 more minutes to say something about climate change and where we are today. But there's an enormous amount of work going on in psychology trying to get at how to communicate better. There is wonderful communication guide from Columbia University about that balance of emotion and analysis and using trusted messengers and bridging the social divide. There's wonderful work at Yale looking at the opinions and attitudes of the US public, the Six Americas study, if you're familiar with it. Interestingly, it says that between 35 and 40% of the population, through all of this struggle we've had, that close to a majority is either aware, alarmed, or concerned. There is another bunch of work at Yale. Dan Kahan and his colleagues looked at this science question. So if people are more scientifically literate, will they become more concerned about climate change? And he found no. When people are more scientifically literate, they become more entrenched in their preconceptions, whatever they were, and they draw on science to defend them. And there is a tremendous wonderful body of work in social psychology. It's called community-based social marketing, and I apologize for the jargon. But it looks at all kinds of ways to bring people together, to model, whether it's more energy efficient lifestyles or whatever, to draw our neighbors into behavior change and into civic action rather than, messaging them. And that is the basis of some of the work that Roger and Justin have been involved with the Neighbor to Neighbor campaign, which has been so effective. So among the psychologies, there is one particular fork in the road that I want to close by identifying. There's a whole set of kind of psychological frameworks building off of Freud, which basically say we're always going to be kind of low level, and we better just accommodate our neurosis. We better kind of, dumb down the messaging, whatever the issue is. People aren't capable of transcending. And then there's another whole set of psychologies that are really about human potential and peak performance. And peak performance psychology, if it has one underpinning, it is about values. It's about getting people at the sweet spot of something that they truly care about. And that's a theme we've all been bringing forward in different ways. Two illustrations of the kind of work that is happening around the country, really stretching communities to do exciting things. One is called the Oberlin Project in Oberlin College, the town of Oberlin, Ohio. They have made a commitment to being climate positive by 2020. They are on track to get 80% of their energy from renewables next year. They are creating a huge green belt around the city. They are doing deep green renovation of one building at a time and then bringing businesses into those buildings. It's a partnership of the college, the town, and lots of other stakeholders. A second example is a coalition. It's called REAMP. I hate the acronym, but it's 8 Great Lakes states. They've got the funders and the nonprofits working together in a huge, very complex coalition. They have managed to stop the building of 32 new coal plants and establish energy policies in about half a dozen states that didn't have them before. So that's the kind of stuff that's out there among us that we can aspire to if we decide to embrace those more ambitious kinds of beliefs about what humans are capable of. And I'm glad that we're in Connecticut. I'm glad I'm back in Connecticut. And I think we've got a slogan to build it all on. If you remember what the governor was talking about a few months ago, Connecticut, still revolutionary.